My Lords, I begin with a very brief reflection of my 26 years or thereabouts on the internet, which saw me hand-coding my first website in 1999, and now one of the few members of your Lordship's House, I believe, with a TikTok account. I've had a lot of good times on the internet, learnt a lot, made a lot of friends, built political communities that stretch around the world in ways that were entirely impossible before it arrived. That tells you, perhaps, that I think we should be careful in this debate about the diagnosis of the source of the undoubted issues that this bill seeks to address. It appears some would like to wave a magic wand and shut it all down if they could, return to some imagined golden age of the past, perhaps when your Lordship's House was harumphing loudly about the damaging effects of this newfangled television. And while we're talking young people, I have a serious question about the capacity of this House to engage with this debate. Yes, we did well during lockdown, getting online, even if we sometimes caught a glimpse of the grandchildren or the great-grandchildren pressing the buttons so that their elders could get to speak in the House. That's the same generation that we're looking to actually take control over what they're doing right now. I invite your Lordships to keep that in mind as this debate proceeds. I put it seriously, very seriously, to your Lordship's House that before we proceed further, we should invite a youth parliament into this very chamber.
I agree.
We should listen to that debate on this bill very carefully. On few subjects is the obvious need for votes at 16 or even younger more obvious. For the experts by experience to be heard. They have the capacity to be the agents to shape their own world if their elders get out of the road. Now, I have no doubt that those young people would tell us that they suffer harm on the internet with awful, violent pornography, dangerous encouragements to self-harm and suicide, and there need to be protections, while acknowledging that the young people cannot be walled off into a little garden of their own. But I'm sure that young people would also say that we need to address much wider issues, to build resilience, provide an education that encourages critical thinking rather than polished regurgitation of the facts. Now, I'd associate with myself with remarks of the noble Lady Maris Merrin and indeed the noble Lord Hastings of Scarisbrooke, among others, about the need for media education. But how do we encourage critical thinking on media while we're also encouraging regurgitation of the right results for the exam, that you have to repeat these 10 points? The two things don't fit together. Now, in a stairwell discussion with a member of your Lordship's House, who I know is not a digital native, and I point out that nobody in this debate today is a digital native, but certainly this was someone with much experience over decades. They reflected on the early hopes of the internet for democracy, for access to information, for community. And they suggested that it was inevitably a lost age. I don't agree. Political decisions and choices allowed a handful of multinational companies, mostly tax-dodging, unaccountable to shareholders, immensely rich now, to dominate. But that's not unique to the internet. That's what political decisions of neoliberalism over the past decades have done to our food supplies, to our retailing, to our energy, to our medicines, and increasingly to our education system. Far-right, misogynistic, racist, homophobic and transphobic voices have been allowed to take hold, to operate without challenge, in our mainstream media, in our community, in our politics, and on the internet. Financial fraud is a huge problem on the internet that hopefully this bill might address. But financial fraud and corruption is a huge problem across our financial sector, as indeed is the problem of all pervasive gambling. The internet is a mirror to our society, as well as a theatre of interaction. And the idea that we can fix our societies by fixing the internet is a fallacy. And for many with commercial and political interests, a comfortable one that deflects political challenges they'd rather not face.
My Lord, if a child